And then you have the CCIC list, which we integrate with most of our law enforcement customers. So CCIC is the same level, it's the same thing as the warrants, but that's at a state level versus a federal level. So if somebody were to ever, come into your community that had that, what would happen is the law enforcement patrol officers who are in the area would get a really annoying ping on their computer. They've got all these tabs open. It's crazy to see if you've seen it, but they'll get a little ping on their computer and a text. Unfortunately, they do use their phones when they drive, but they'll get those pings and then they'll be able to act in real time and, dispatch an officer locally there.
Very good. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else on the board? And then into the pricing stuff, we still have the pricing information, right?
Yeah, and Ryan, I never received anything. I didn't know if you had sent that over today regarding updated pricing.
Yeah. So we've been using this new software to share content, and I learned that essentially if I shared it with you, it wouldn't be able to share along. So I'm going to have to reorganize it and send it over, but that will give me the opportunity to also touch on the IT back end, our security in the cloud and things of that nature. So I'll include all that when I send it over to you, but I'll send it over to you either tomorrow morning or tonight.
Okay. Has there been a price increase since you presented to the board the first time?
Nope, no price increase. And I'll say we do not foresee a price increase, at least in the next year. And the way our pricing works is, and we've never done this either, but if you were locked in at XYZ price and we did a price increase 3 years down the road, you'd be grandfathered into your original price.
I think the other thing they talked about is whether we wanted as a board to have access to the video, and I'm like, no. I mean, no, that was just a question. I'm not in favor of that.
You don't want to see when Craig's going to get Chick-fil-A?
We're just letting you know that, Ryan.
Yeah,
we don't want to know.
For sure. And I think, and the good news is, I know your board meeting is in about a month or so where a decision might be made. The good news is by then I would expect ideally, I think we'll have the MOU signed from Douglas County Sheriff's Office. So that way you can be completely hands off, and they'll get trained likely towards the end of October. So if you guys called the police and said, hey, we had somebody break into a car by the clubhouse or whatever it is, they're going to be like, okay, great. You guys have Flock. We're going to pull up the license plate readers. Let's see if we can tie this back to any information that we have from the call. And the same thing with the hot hits as well. So you guys can be completely hands off, especially once we have that MOU in place.
Cool.
One more question came to mind, and that would be, is the data that you do store for the time frame that you store it, subject to a FOIA request? In other words, could a citizen or a private detective or somebody like that request that information for, what did you say, you keep it for 30 days? Is that correct?
So you're saying beyond 30 days?
No, just, well, either or. While you have it for 30 days, could it be subject to a FOIA request?
No. So essentially the way that's going to work is if you guys signed up for Flock Safety, the first thing you'd have to, if you want to be hands off, you check the box for Douglas County Sheriff's Office to have access to it. If anybody outside wanted access to it, maybe even someone in the community, you all would have to grant that access.
Don't want to be there.
Someone's got to be the admin. Someone just has to have their email. That's all. That's all we need to let you know we're coming out to do something.
And I guess that's the point I have. Being a government agency, if somebody were to present us with a FOIA request, we would then in turn have to ask you to hand that information over, I believe.
And it's called a FOIA request?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Freedom of Information Act, yeah.
So in other words, they can come to any public agency with a FOIA request, and you have to turn over the requested documents. Happens at all levels of government. So if we had any, if we were in any way involved with the actual management of this, we would be subject, I believe, I'm not a lawyer here, but we would be subject to allowing that person with that request into your system to review your data, or you would present it to them. Now, there would be a cost associated with that because you can charge for that information, printing cost, whatever. Any thoughts?
I haven't had that come up. I put in my notes here to check with our lawyer and follow up with you guys on that. Yeah, I'll check on that. But the way that I would envision it works is you have to remember, like if you give local law enforcement access, you're giving them access to your footage. They don't own that footage by any means. You're just granting them access. So if FOIA came to Douglas County and wanted your information, they'd still have to come. I don't even know if they could. I'm not sure on that, but I'll check on that because at the end of the day, you're granting that access. You're the one who always has to grant the access. But I'll check on that for you.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at what we're giving them, we're only giving them a license plate number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
We're really not giving anything else.
And video evidence.
It'll be the video.
Yeah,
There is video.
there is video. So that's material, right?
Really fast, I just wanted to clarify, they're motion activated, so it's going to snap a bunch of photos versus video. So there's no like surveillance. So that's just, apples to apples, but I just want to let you guys know.
So Ryan, one last question, because you made me think about it, was if this is all hands off, how are we going to know if it's off or something's wrong? Like how does that, is there somebody monitoring it from Flock that flags those things and then we get pinged somehow? Or I mean, how do we know that in fact, if we're having any issues, how do we address that? Or how does that happen?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So typically before any community knows about it, we generally will know a camera's down or is having a software malfunction or anything of that nature. So what we do is we actually hired a local technician here in Colorado. So what we would do is we would submit a request on the back end, send it to you guys and say, hey, we're having there's a software problem, or hey, the battery's close to dead. We're going to come change the battery, things of that nature. And we'll email you before we do any of that. And we'll definitely welcome you to come on site with us, to talk with our technician if need be too.
Okay, cool. But you guys would basically notify me. But basically what I heard is you would monitor it when there was an issue. You would take action on that and notify us, and then we would go from there.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Well, Ryan, if you could then send me that information, I'll make sure the board members get it and we'll place it on the agenda for the board's next meeting.
Definitely. And for those who don't have it, I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out with any questions you might have additional to what we talked about today, or anything you might want to see in follow up that might come up. So I'm going to send my email here, but I really appreciate it, guys. If you'd like me to come down to the next board meeting, let me know. And I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop on Douglas County as well.
Yeah, we probably need to know if Douglas County is signed up before we make a decision.
I think that would be a caveat.
Yeah.
We would want that before we put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Maybe this one's not the right one, but the one after.
Yeah, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, just keep us informed as to the MU that you're looking at.
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks everyone. You guys have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you.
Bye.
Any other discussion points on this topic at this point?
No, I think we have all the info. we need. And remembering, just for those on the call, just to remember this, the only proposal they have is to put a camera or two at the very front of the park. They do not want to go put the cameras throughout the whole thing. It doesn't make sense.
Or one, they couldn't get cellular access either.
Right. Well, there's that. But the point is, it's one on the way
there you
in.
go.
I think one on the way out. And
Yeah.
that's all they really wanted to do. But I think that's still a conversation around that they're taking pictures of people's cars, and that's material we should know how that's handled. So
Yeah, we agree. Well, very good. Well, no further, let's move on. Number 4, Upper Cheyenne access. And I think this revolves around foot and bicycle traffic primarily of
Horses.
residents. What's
And
that?
horses.
Remember
And
horses?
And horses.
Remember that was badass.
Small ponies, large dogs, whatever.
Is Terry use that at all?
Llamas, camels. For use of Upper Cheyenne while the contractor is not working up there. It will be a little bit of time before they get back up there. Okay, we do have a nice fall season. I would be anxious to see people be able to go up there and utilize that area. The one concern I would have is there's still some equipment that is parked up there. And, you know, if you're allowing our good residents to go up and walk, I don't think there's any issue with vandalization and that kind of thing. My biggest concern would be curiosity. And, you know, who wouldn't want to climb up and sit in a big giant machine and pretend you were running it or something like that? But, you know, could there, but, you know, that's kind of a sidebar thing. I think if people just would stay away from the equipment, that would be fine. But when they do re-engage, then we're going to have a lot of truck traffic again. And further back in phase 2 area, which is going to be below the Indian Head portion of it, there's going to be a lot of debris flying around and will be hazardous. So that portion of Upper Cheyenne, which was accessible via several routes in from the neighborhood that people could use while we were doing phase 1, will not be an option.
Right.
And actually the beginning of it by the gate all the way back to there is going to have a lot of truck traffic and stuff on it. So, you know, that portion I think we can maybe reconsider at that point in time. But I, for one, would be in favor of saying, go have a nice walk on Upper Cheyenne.
Right.
Is there anything we should do about signage that says, hey, you're back working, stop?
I think that's what
How do
we
we
could do.
stop?
That would be the key thing. We could put out an e-blast. We could post it on the website. We could add a sign on the gate to let people know that.
I was gonna say, should we have a hazard sign somewhere for this?
Enter at your own
Just a
risk.
Safety, as a safety point, you know?
Please
And
stay.
enter on your own risk or something.
Well,
like
they
that.
can't even say that, but we don't want them to enter.
Yeah, I don't think we are just, yeah.
I mean, I would put something on the equipment.
Oh, on the equipment.
Well, we do have
Stay off.
signage up
No trespassing.
at the gate that notifies people that work's going on, right? You know,
Okay.
when the
Okay.
project started. And then we came up with some little signs that I posted in a couple, 3 locations that said danger mitigation work.
Okay,
Well,
So that's why, I just want to make sure, if we're
That we're
gonna,
covered.
we should take those out, if we're gonna allow people to start walking up there. But then put them back up when we know that they shouldn't be there anymore.
You know, I think if we leave those just to avoid a lot of needless work.
But then what happens, Randy, is when we start working again, people are gonna say, well, those signs have always been there. I didn't why.
Yeah, that's the point. But we could add a quick posting to the community and especially another sign on the gate that
yeah,
would
that's probably the key one, is the one on the gate coming off or going back on.
let them
Right.
know that work's back in progress. And the other thing is we may want to add a couple of signs given the location of phase 2 to a couple of those other access points. Like we don't have a sign up on the upper part of Pike, which is kind of a major way in right into that area where they're going to be doing a lot of work. Also off of Kiowa. Yeah. So we may have to add a couple signs when people are actually back there working.
Yeah.
I don't
Can I
know.
ask a question?
Yeah.
As far as you know, that only like the people that own up in Upper Cheyenne had a key to get into the gate.
Mhm.
How does, I guess that was one of my questions, is how does that affect them like right now? Like if they wanted,
They can call up and I've personally taken
so people that
three
are.
different people up escorted them in.
Okay.
When work was going on, we picked a time when they weren't working, but work was still ongoing, and took them up, and a couple of them hadn't seen their lot since they purchased it in like the early 1970s. And I'm not joking.
Wow.
And they didn't even remember where it is or how to get there because there's no street signs up
I was
there.
gonna say, find a lot there.
Well,
Where that is.
really impossible. So what I did was I looked up their address and/or lot description in the assessor's office mapping, located where their lot was, and took them right to it. You know, which was a much better deal, I thought, than having them aimlessly wandering all day long, being frustrated.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm telling you what, it probably doesn't look like it did in the early 1970s up there, even if you had a photographic memory of what your lot looked like, right?
Yeah.
So you're okay taking on the responsibility through.
Well, I have, you know, I mean, if we get 100 people with that request, I may ask for a little help on
Are
that.
there 100 one of them?
There's probably 300.
Okay. If they're going to show up at once, right? Yeah.
But-
Right.
But they do have, what I'm asking, they do have the right to have access to their lot right now.
That is correct. They
Okay,
do.
so like through it with a vehicle or something.
Right, correct.
Okay, that's the question.
Yeah.
It's only the residents that don't have lots up there that right now. we
Right,
don't
I'm just being clear about that, because I was
Yeah.
like, I've sold lots up there, so I'm like.
No, and also realtors. I think we've given out
That's $20,000 lot up there.
we've given out 2 keys to realtors that were showing properties up there, and I asked them if you're going to take somebody up there, please give a call ahead of time, because I don't
Okay.
want you walking literally into a buzzsaw
Yeah.
with your little adventure up there. So yeah, I mean, we can work it out.
Okay, I was just curious about that, because I was thinking that would be the case, but I
Yeah.
wasn't.
No, that's a really good point, Bonnie, and yes, I think we're very cognizant of the property right thing, and people, if they need to get up there, we'll get them up there.
Okay. Fair.
We just don't want them, we want them to get up there and to be able to come back.
Yes,
in one piece.
yes, in one piece.
We don't want to send a rescue team.
No, not so much. That would be bad. Anything else on Upper Cheyenne access? Is everybody kind of happy with that as far as?
So are we going to make a notice then that people can start going back in there? Or
That's
did we
what
already?
that's what we talked about. No, we haven't, but that's part of the, I was gonna put that into
The Sentinel.
Sentinel, but I'm not, put anything into social, right? That's not where I work, so. I will look to.
I'm gonna wait
Arts
until
and
he puts it in.
social
I will put it in.
here Across the way.
Well,
Yeah, I will put it on social media once it's in the center.
Okay.
Everybody
And
cool
I'll
with
take
that?
your thing and
And I
go
think
around.
if we do an e-blast out to residents too, and then that whole same process would just work into reverse when work resumes up there. The first part of the work would actually resume down on Acoma. There's between 5 and 10 acres of higher ground in phase 1 that needs to be done yet. We're looking at that, and then based on the bid we get in on phase 2, we may hold off on doing some of that work because it could happen during phase 3. It's on some pretty steep ground. And honestly, where it is, completing that little bit of work up there would not be incredibly beneficial from a wildland fire standpoint, because right now there's a really big open area, and going back in a little bit more is not going to make a big difference one way or the other with fire behavior. The other thing is that we can trade some of that acreage for better acreage over in phase 2 work. So if you see what I'm talking about there,
So,
that would get us a little more work done, maybe in a spot where it would make more of a difference.
so just timing wise, when I'm writing this, when do we think, just so we can give some rough idea, when do we think that's gonna start back up?
Not sure. They're up on another project right now for the State Forest Service. It's another grant on a private landowner off of Rampart Range Road. They jumped off of that project last December to come down and start work here. That grant has a tighter time frame, and they need to get that work done for the snow flies, or they're not going to meet the grant requirements. So they're going to try to get that knocked out. As soon as they get that knocked out, I've been informed by the State Forest Service that they will be at full time in our project, finish up phase 1, and move into phase 2.
What are you thinking, the winter? Or will they not
It'll
during the winter?
probably be late fall or early winter. Yes. They have to get off that property up there by December 1st, because they shut Rampart Range down. And
Yeah.
if they get a storm prior to that, that's going to shut their access down. So that's why they're really trying to get that done before we have the potential of a bigger job stopping the snow up there.
Right.
And they've got some good land they can work in Perry Park, even if we do get some moisture. It's just up on the Rampart, it doesn't go away as quick.
Yeah.
So we'll say sometime later this year. Is probably.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be a good.
So people can get up and go out and see the fall.
Yeah. For a couple months, they can go up there and
Well,
walk around and
we're
see
in
the
the
fall
fall.
We're
foliage.
right, it's a thick of it.
It's just starting and into a good part of October. Some of the most beautiful
Right.
walking weather we have.
I know.
You know, so I hope people will get up, take advantage, and take a look at the work up there. And if anybody were to have any questions on the work, please give us a call. Always happy to chat about what you see. Some people are going to see a big open area and go, "Oh my goodness, what happened?" Well, there's a few green trees left. When that project started, it was all dead timber. The dead timber was taken out, and what few green trees you see were the few green trees that were left in the dead timber.
Mhm.
So just so you know, I am gonna put into this that, you know, lot owners can contact you to get access, just in case they don't know that.
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
I'm
no
gonna put
sense.
that in there, just to contact Randy Johnson.
Like I said, we haven't had a lot of requests for that.
Your phone number.
No, I'll just put your fair parking.
Yeah, I was gonna either that or just send them to info and
Or
then
info.
forward it. That way you're not inundated.
That's good, thank you,
Yeah,
because that's even better.
the info would be great if they have a request. And then if I do get inundated with that kind of stuff, I may reach out for some assistance if you guys don't mind. I'm happy to do what I can do.
Joe said he would.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, Joe's the true ambassador of the community.
Hey, I should like
I'll find
take them
my
up there,
honest
but I
back
could
and
not
I'll
find
start
out where their lot is. But it's over there. I think.
Okay,
Well, Randy, when we first started talking about the work session, we put this on there to talk about, will you give keys again? Will we issue keys to residents eventually when all the work is complete? And that's been a question on.
okay. I think the way it's going to work, at least partially at this point, is that once the work is complete, we need to keep the new lock on there. The old lock was starting to fall apart.
Right.
And that was going to have to be a replacement sometime in the near future regardless. So this was just the opportunity to do that. The new lock, which we got a second identical lock that we keep in case that one ever gets messed up by vandals or wears out. That'll help with that. Plus the type of lock it is, they could recreate another one of those with the same key. The lock that's on there now, they cannot do that. Don't ask me why, I'm not a locksmith, but I had a coma look at it in great detail, and it's not a salvageable situation with that lock. So anyway, yes, all landowners will get a key, and we'll mail all that stuff out. I think it's up to the board to decide how else we work that, because the requirement really is, with the agreement with Douglas County, is that landowners get a key. As far as anybody else that wants to go riding around up there, if, like I said, realtors, business transactions, that kind of thing, I think is very justifiable. To just go open the gate and go hot rodding around in your truck or some other vehicle, I kind of question that. if you're a responsible driver, I don't have an issue with that. But we were seeing some hot rodding Baja activity up there before this project even kicked off. That's something I think the board needs to have further discussions on and decide what you guys want to do.
Those are county roads.
That is correct.
And what is Douglas County's stance on people going around hot rodding up there?
Well, number one, and although our community has been very tolerant of things like ATVs and golf carts driving on public roads, that has extended up to Upper Cheyenne. However, when you get people with unlicensed vehicles in there abusing that and making it miserable for everybody else that's up there, I'm not sure what the answer is to that. Or can we just tell people to please behave so that we can take those things up?
Or does Douglas County have a ordinance or a say in whether we allow anybody to go up there, driving anything?
Well, just the pipe.
Well, they are county roads, and yeah, if you've got property up there, you're absolutely.
You're not an owner up there.
Yeah, there is in that ordinance, in fact, it's on that sign that talked about who can and can't go up, and I don't recall that language right off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
We got time to go find some.
Right. Yeah, we should
like, cause we should look into this and with somebody, you know, sounds like you. Right. Volunteer yourself to this one. Volunteer. So the reason I bring that up is because, I mean, everything we're talking about here, like with key and everything, we're talking, that's well over a year out from here.
Yes,
easily. Right. Yes. So just for setting the stage for everyone else on the call, we're going to be mitigating up there for a long time.
At least a while, maybe two.
Yeah. So.
Well, with phase 3 having a high likelihood of happening.
Right. So yeah, we're
getting some tremendous
time
before this is going to become something, but we should do the research and go actually find the actual, even if it's a plaque, whatever it is that actually talks about.
Well, you know, and it's such a wonderful resource up there. I don't want to be the one that's a buzzkill on this thing at all, and I think there's so much fun people can have up there. You know, if you're responsible, taking your, if you take an ATV up or an unlicensed vehicle up, you do that at your own risk because that is against state law, and Douglas County could pursue you should they decide to do that. However, like I said, in our community over the years, we've had a high tolerance for people zipping around in golf carts and ATVs, and that's great. I think that's one of the wonderful things about Perry Park and why we live there.
Right. Yeah.
You know. So yeah, we need further discussion.
Well, and the thing that I've always thought is that the only reason that the keys got out of hand was somebody started making duplicates, even though they were do not duplicate keys. In my opinion, if it's a non-resident up in Upper Cheyenne, well, even residents, we number the keys. We have them signed for them. We have a key deposit and so forth. And then we make sure that they know all the rules for up there.
Right. Well, you're supposed to carry, there are rules in place right now. You're supposed to carry something like 5 gallons of water or a fire extinguisher and a shovel.
Right. In
case you happen to run across any fires. That came across from the days of a big fire problem up there.
That's even if you take a truck up there, and it doesn't matter.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any vehicle that goes up there has to
start a fire. Yeah,
that's right. Spark arresters and all that kind of good stuff on the CVs and the
but that seems like that would be easy enough to have like a one sheet that says, if you want this key, read these rules, sign it.
Well, and like I said, there is a sheet with a set of rules on it.
I know, they sign it. I mean, it's kind of everything says, I've acknowledged this.
I believe that was the case.
It's on the application.
Yeah.
Then it would be so nice if we could find a lock that can only work between this hour and this hour. So that we lock them in there after dark, and those kids that go up there to have fires and parties would be locked in and they can't get out.
They can't walk around that at all.
Well, they can walk around it, but their vehicle's going to be stuck.
There's other places they can get in and out.
Exactly. If they're walking,
there's a will, there's a way.
I was a kid once.
I think we really do have a number of things to address with this and think through,
Woodsy.
and to try to keep that wonderful resource a great benefit for all of our community members. And let's all think a little bit more on that of what would be good ways to do it, and we'll get our heads together here a little later in the game and get this hammered out. Does it make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any comments from our audience on that?
It's a work
Oh, they
session.
can't. That's right. Sorry about that.
No, I think it's right. The one thing I would say is to remind people, like, I feel like I'm having to remind people right now that there are lot owners up there. There are people that is their personal property.
Yes.
And to be, I mean, we're stating the obvious, but that isn't always obvious.
And you
to
can
be
go up and
respectful.
play on your property. In fact, I have, with my fire marshal hat on over the years, I've had 3 different lot owners that basically just bought that property knowing that they're probably never going to be able to put a house on it, but bought it just to go up and hang out. And they wanted to have a fire. And so I went up with them, like I do to all of our fire permit requests, looked at their ground, made sure they had a really good spot to burn, advised them of all the fire hazards, regulations, this, that, and the other thing. And I think all of those went up, and I think the most requests I ever got from a lot owner up there was like 3 permits over several years. The other ones, it was like a one and done. So anyway, let's move on now, unless you guys have further.
Keep going.
No.
Moments. Oh, monuments.
Are you having a moment?
I'm having a moment. Yes, I am. Monuments at the entrance to Perry Park. And I guess that has to do with the whole, how do we want to treat the front entryway feature is what that is. There's a lot of things to work through there. A number of things come to mind. It kind of depends on, number one, what kind of a budget we want to set
I
up
think
for
that's
it.
where this all starts, right? Because we've been talking about this for since I started. It's been a minute now.
No, it's
So like this is
Been a while.
maybe the first or second one. Yeah. So I think the first thing, knowing where we're at right now, we're heading into budget season for next year. I mean, we're not likely to do anything this year, right? So I think it's more
In
matter-
21? No.
as far as expenditure.
Right.
So I think what we really need to talk about is what's our plan to get to a point where we at least have an estimate or a guesstimate what we would ballpark for capital improvement for the front for next year. And then how would we organize that, like you had talked about during the meeting, Craig, through the rest of the neighborhood, because it's by far the most visible part of our neighborhood.
I agree.
Right. We want to make sure that gets as much attention and feedback and time as possible.
Right.
Well, we kind of started to touch on that at the last meeting, just a little bit. And I know we do have some skilled people within our community that have experience in these kind of things. And if they're willing to come forth and kind of work on this, I think it would be great to maybe come up with, put a little work session together, like a little subcommittee work session together.
I think a committee.
Where, let's say we get this group of people that have the technical skills to work on a project like this.
Didn't we decide that in the last meeting?
No,
Yeah.
you said you talked about it.
But we talked to Jill Arthurs and asked her if she'd be interested.
Right.
She said
And
yes.
she is.
And she said absolutely.
Yeah.
She mentioned that to me like, God, 3 years ago, I got
Yeah.
4 years
And I know she's on the call.
Yeah.
To me, it makes sense to just say, let's get that committee together
Agreed.
and see if they can come up quickly
Mhm.
with an idea of what it would cost to do something like that. With Jill's experience
Mhm.
and background, she should be able to, or she might be able to help us figure out the cost of that.
Well,
So we can budget
So
for
should
next
we
year.
put this on the docket for the next meeting, which is how do we, to set up a committee?
Yeah, you can appoint a committee, and that's what we talked about last time. And I think the best way would be is to ask the committee to come up with 2, maybe 3 conceptual designs.
That's right.
Right.
And then you can reach out to contractors to say, how much is this going to cost? And then you can make a decision is, do we want to stay there? Or do you want to downgrade? Do you want to upgrade? And then let the committee work to, revise the plans.
I think the process should be that probably 3 concepts should be developed, okay? And rough ballpark guesstimates can be attached to those concepts. At that point, those concepts get presented at a series of 2 or 3 meetings open to the public where they come in, and then we get feedback on that. And it's a very good way to do business that way. Of people go, well, you got this group of people, and they say they look at the different examples that are up. So sketchboards or something like that could be set up that people can look at, or we can do it electronically somehow.
Both. That's all the above.
Yeah, all the above. People look at it. People go, as a general consensus at that meeting, we like example B the best. Everybody just seems to be leaning towards that. However, here's some recommended changes that we think could happen to even make it better or whatever. And then go back and incorporate those changes, take a look at the pricing, and then follow that up with a kind of a final meeting of the presentation of the concept, presentation of cost estimate to the community, and again, get some feedback at that point in time. And then the board take action based on all that.
My one big concern is that if we start this process like this, we will not have a budget number for next year.
Well, I think we just have to allocate.
We can allocate a certain amount of dollars.
Yeah.
You've done that.
If we did do it, I don't know how much we'd actually get done
Right.
next year. Because what we're just talking about right now, that's the first 6
that's
months
gonna
of next year.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like it's gonna be June, July, August before we're even talking about moving forward on an effort, but we want to make sure we have funds available to do that.
Right.
Which we do at this time.
Yeah, and you've been budgeting every year for that, but potentially what the 2022 would include is any costs that might be associated with the committee. If they need to spend any money, if you need to spend any money to get those concepts going, to do the surveys, and then 2023 is when you actually
bids back,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's gonna be work here that's gonna
Well,
take a while before we get to.
You're going to have engineering bids first, and then the engineers are going to come back and then with their concepts according to what we've
Well,
come up with, and then contractor bids.
I just want people to be realistic. That this is a 2023 project.
Well,
Most likely.
here's the other
I think
thing.
you're probably right. I think, but you probably want to make sure we hold some funds for a lot of this work.
Mhm.
And, look, if we get to Q4 and we're ready to move on it, then we should be able to at least allow that to start if that's something that if the weather's permitting, right? We should delay. So,
Right.
Are we able to maybe get GOCO grants or any other kind of grants? Does anyone know?
For that, I doubt
I
it.
think this is all.
Yeah, that one seems to be no.
Okay.
I don't know how to.
But it's on conservancy in our land.
but it's just aesthetics. It's not something, it's not a recreational
I think
infrastructure.
It is.
Yeah.
Not to say that there couldn't be other grants potentially available. I don't know who would like to do the research on that, but I don't know what it would be.
Probably got the money to cover this, don't we?
Yeah.
Although what again?
I mean, unless we go like super extravagant and build something that's like 70 feet tall. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've got the funds to cover this and still be fine.
I would suggest we do the same thing a homeowner would do that's going to landscape their backyard or something. It's like, I'd like to have a nice backyard, a backyard that's nicer than what I have now. And I'm going to allocate X amount of dollars, and what can be done for X amount of dollars. Now, if they find out that they're really not going to get anything even remotely close to what's in their head for X amount of dollars, and they have to go 1.5X or twice X, then that's a decision at that point. So this board could easily set a number that we are going to try to work towards, that we feel comfortable with from an expenditure standpoint, and see what we can get done for that. And this group or committee on the three concepts working with very generalized numbers for cost estimate, we'll keep that in mind, so instead of the gold-plated yada yada out there, we're gonna have the tin yada yada. No, I'm just joking.
We just moved the big rock that we had back.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
that's
Cheap
right.
rock.
I buy a bigger rock to stick the little rock on top.
Oh.
Yeah.
No,
I think we can
See,
do
'cause
some
I'm
really
gonna
nice
say,
stuff out
I
there.
just think it is so important, that entrance is so important.
Oh, it
That
is.
is the very first thing that gives you a feel and a belief of what Ferry Park is
right,
about.
and I think
And it
And
affects
it's
property
gonna be-
values
Yeah, but it's,
in a positive way to do it upright.
look at this.
so we just need to communicate that we're building committee, and we're putting a committee in place. Their job is to help facilitate this. And then what that looks like from here to the end of the year, and then what the plan looks like next year, and like, hey, roughly, how are we making sure we're involving as much of the neighborhood as possible? Probably includes maybe even setting up time at the front of the park, for people just driving in maybe to look at stuff, because we have a lot of people who don't get online, don't have any other way to get this information, right? So
The other
So
thing,
you could have like the mock-ups there, and we could be there, and people
Yeah.
could go.
yeah, we can figure out ways to do that, but the point is just, I think we just have to work with a committee to help, who's
Yeah, but-
committed to doing this.
we might want to look at the country club also, because if you know that the one rock that's up there says Perry Park, the other side of it says Perry Park Country Club. They do have a monument up there also.
They do.
The new one, they
They're
have.
actually, somebody brought up a point here a while back, and I don't know the validity of the point, that the fact that that's in a county right of way.
All of it is in the county. right
Yes.
away. All of our stuff is too.
Right, but the whole thing of doing a commercial advertisement for the club in a county right of way, there's something about that. I
It's
don't know.
not
what-
a commercial, it's just a signage saying it's here. You're at the right place.
Yeah, but there may be more to it. It's just one of those things you need to look at. And we have plenty of room to get that, if that is an issue, outside of the right of way. So, yes, we'll keep that sign, absolutely.
If it's commercial, can it go on the DLC line? Probably not.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about that.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
We may want to. And, I might encourage the country club to
I mean, that's what
become a
conversation.
partner on that.
Should we, as a very first step, should we contact Sean over at Douglas County and see if they would mark a few feet going on the 105 right away? Because I know that we've got a rock sitting there right now with the little red feathers.
Oh, do we need to come out and do that, or can they just give
Just
us
get a drawing.
give us drawings of the space and say, okay, this is where it's all at? I think that's probably, I think we should do that.
Well,
But you'll eventually have
we
to have
were
it
off.
surveyed.
Joe and I measured to put the signs that said no vehicles behind this. And we measured from the center, and boy, we were off by 5 feet
Yeah.
because we didn't do it like the surveyor
I was
would.
just gonna think, I think Sean would probably provide us with hopefully just a document or something that has it.
Oh, they could come out.
Why wouldn't they
It's not
come back and survey it again, but survey down 105?
We have both sides of Red Rock,
Yes.
and so that's defined, and all we need is where the setback from 105 is, right just across that little area.
We just asked them.
Is that like something that you wouldn't pay a surveyor to
We
do?
look,
Well,
I
I
need to survey it, it's
yeah, let the
expensive.
county, yeah, let the county do it for free.
Well,
The
then,
county
yeah,
does it for free, great. but
Yeah,
I-
that's what they did last time.
yeah,
The other concern is that fence that goes down along 105. That's in the right of way also, I
Yes.
know it is. Because they've got so much of a right of way.
yeah.
And is that our land?
It's DCLC slash
What's the LC?
Perry Park. I mean,
Technically, we're responsible for it, so yeah.
yeah, we'd be required to move it. When they did the road work there and put the turn lane in, they took some of that fence down and then put it back up. It was- County, I believe, took care of all of that
Yeah,
for
they did.
us.
They did.
Well, we'll take a look at
Like I said,
that.
I think there's a lot of research up front, like this is, like you said, this is a long, like,
Long
this is the
term
kickoff of
This
something
is,
that doesn't finish until.
this isn't
sometime in
something,
2023.
I just want to make sure the
Ish.
residents understand. This isn't something we're gonna do in 6 months or 2 months.
Right.
This is gonna take us a long time to work it out and get it done
We're
right.
gonna do it
Because
right.
we want it right, and
Right.
beautiful and.
Well, the other thing that I think is really important thing is, we need to clean up that electrical mess out there.
Yep.
We got all these overhead wires and poles and all this junk. It looks kind of third worldly in my opinion. I would like to see all that electrical go underground
Oh,
Talk to Core.
there and, you know, have a vault versus pole transformer. And I mean, there's just, it's a mess, you know, and it's visually
kind of feeling.
kind of irritating. Personally, that's the way I feel anyway.
Well, and we also got to get with the water district if we can have a water tap, because that's going to affect the type of vegetation that we put up there.
Absolutely.
There's gotta be water there,
Yeah.
No, there's water.
maybe usable, like,
Well-
we've already killed some trees, and flowers don't really grow, and
There was an agreement
so.
sometime in the past by other boards, and it had something to do with. It was a tit for tat thing on, was it a property or whatever? Anyway, the way I understand it is that the water district owes us a water tap.
Oh.
So we have an outstanding tap available to us at, I don't know what the measure of that agreement was, if it was just the overall cost of the tap, whether that included the physical work to get the tap in or not, I don't know. That's something we're gonna have to research, Kurt, if you don't mind on that. Let's see what we can do. Now that tap could either be used for Wakanda Park, or it could be used for this project. And then the other one would have to, of course, be totally purchased by us. So I think we need to look into that and see where we're at. But water's key, yeah, right? There's no sense doing anything out there unless we got some water.
Well, yeah.
So we would have some plants. The other part of that is we can make it a little demonstration garden, combination of xeriscape and Firewise plant materials could be incorporated in. So we could set up almost that front garden as an educational setting for people. I think there's a lot of ideas that could be explored by this committee.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
So can somebody actually, I know she mentioned something on, chat and Zoom, but can somebody actually reach out to Jill and kind of talk to her and see if she's really interested in driving this or not?
How about any questions they can email at the info? So
Well, just if we need to talk about, captains for something like this, we probably need somebody who's really invested in this. So, and obviously your board member attached too, we know that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so that's just something to think about there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So we can get the ball rolling on that, at least at that level, right? Number 6, Bear Creek Trail Maintenance.
We're playing with this.
We
landed that there isn't anything we could find, right? There is no.
No,
but there is.
There's no agreement.
No, there's no.
No, there's a
All there
sign.
is there's a mention in the plat notes of the 5th filing.
Oh.
That basically just says, if I recall correctly, you didn't happen to have a copy.
No, I just have the information from the assessor's website, and it's Mr. Draper's property.
Right, it's
The
Mr.
district
Draper's
doesn't own
property,
anything.
but it was a general note for all out-track parcels in filing 5 that said the public had access to those. The public also included not just Perry Park residents. It was restricted to Perry Park residents and residents of Perry Park East, because those developments back in the day were tied together. And so for whatever reason, that's the language that's in the plat notes. The public at large is not welcome in those, according to the plat notes, right? And then that plat note, that's all that plat note says. That plat note transferred with the deed when Terry picked it up. It's still part of, there was no exclusion. So yes, the public can use Perry Park residents and residents of Perry Park East, according to the plat notes, are allowed to go back onto that parcel.
That's great.
That's it.
But it doesn't require us or give us permission
When
to do any work.
when all that was written, and there was not even a metro district established.
Yeah.
That
No, I
was
understand that.
Metro district.
I understand that, but, so we have access. It doesn't say we can build a trail, or we can build sidewalks, or we can build anything. That's entirely up to Mr. Gray.
That is correct.
And if somebody, because we keep getting communications from residents saying, oh, you need to clean that up, a tree fell down on this. Residents or residents.
Well, no, is that a plural or is that a singular?
There is multiple people.
There is more than one.
But they keep asking about it. When are you gonna go in there and clean it up and fix it? It's not ours to do, is what I'm hearing.
Right.
That would be my interpretation of that. That is correct.
They would
We
have
don't
to talk
have
to
any
Mr.
authority.
Draper and ask him if he was willing.
Okay, how are we gonna get that back out?
Or if somebody were to get permission to go in and on their own get some volunteers, and if Mr. Draper was accommodating to that whole concept, that would be another way to achieve
Yes.
that.
Yep.
And there may be some people out there willing to do that.
But the implication was made that we should go clean it up. And we really can't. Our hands are tied. We're not legally allowed to do it.
We don't have an ability to go in there and do that.
So we all understand that. That's all.
Now,
So if there's any liability, if anybody gets hurt back there, how does that fall?
They're on their own.
Terry's.
well, I don't know. That's a good question, and I'm sure that would get decided in a court.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
I
No, but I mean.
no idea.
If you give
Because to
somebody
me-
permission to cross your property, they can cross your property. If they fall down and get hurt, and it's because of some negligence on your part, you might be sued.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
you-
it's still, there's always that little part of the law, from what I understand, is people have to take reasonable precautions walking down your sidewalk. If it's icy and snowy, they should be careful.
Okay,
Wear
so
boots.
falls happen,
You know,
Right.
But those are all the things that some, like you said, some court of law is gonna have.
Well, I access that trail on a very regular basis, a couple times a week. And in fact, here just last weekend, I took the trail all the way up to where track K ends, where Cheyenne crosses the creek, Fair Creek up there. And especially the upper reaches are incredibly overgrown. See this scratch here is so nice.
Oh, that's
Yeah, no, I'm not a cutter, so yeah. But yeah,
But that just makes, I mean, that's part of my question is like Terry owns it.
Mhm.
But there's some language in there that says that we can access it. But can he, like, let me just play devil's advocate, could he say, I don't really want y'all going up there,
that apparently is not the case because
so that's a no.
my third party understanding of this is that back in the day, he did do that, and he actually, there's still a big rock that has paint on it that says, do not enter or private or whatever. And that's kind of what the discussions were about, with the fact that the plat note transferred with that property.
Well, the plat note is basically, sounds like an easement, right? I mean, it's given
Yeah,
the people that live in these two areas the rights to cross them.
right.
I'm just gonna tell you right now, I've been part of another group down in Teller County. They got the same problem going on right now. There's a hell of a lawsuit over this. The landowner said, had the same type thing, a trail going up, everybody used it, and he had given permission. But then the county came along and said, well, I don't know, this may have a legal problem. And So he just shut it down. He says, I don't want anybody following or anything else. So now there's a lawsuit over it.
Yeah.
Was there a plat note that gave people
I
access?
don't, plat note,
I
whatever.
mean, I have a plat note that gives me the right to drive up Jen Kaufman's road to get to my house. It's not I don't own any of that land. But I have the right to drive up that road.
It's not an official easement, but there's a plat note.
There's something like that that says you can go up there.
Yeah, plat notes have a lot of,
But they have,
In fact, they probably have more power than these ones.
so I would say if people are that go up there on a regular basis, they should take it upon themselves to make a community group and clean that up.
But regardless, I think, I don't know if we want to communicate this, but I think we definitely want to do is you probably want to put some documentation into the SharePoint specifically about this. Commemorating the fact we did the research, we know where there's a plat note, this is what's going on. This is where we're at with our agreement with Terry and everything else, just so there's information, not just for us, but for future boards, when this comes up, it's like, well, what are we doing? Like, there's no, let's be clear about, maintenance or our liability there.
And I'll
Just
respond.
say, okay, and just put that.
Sure.
And caution, because of just the word you said agreement. We don't
There is
have an
no
agreement.
But that's what I'm saying, there's no agreement.
No agreement whatsoever.
That's my,
No,
I think
yes,
that's what I want to commemorate, is there is no agreement.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I would just want to put that into a piece of documentation and store it in SharePoint, because I feel like this is the kind of stuff we should make sure we commemorate.
agree.
So the
Yeah,
next time
that's
somebody comes to us and says, what are you guys doing about Bear Creek Trail?
Right.
We just say, hey, that you have to talk to the landlord.
Well, the question came up that there's a sign.
If it's not us, somebody can look it up and go, oh,
Yeah.
oh, here's the,
Here's the.
Yeah, here's the page.
The question came up that there's a sign at the front of the trail, basically where it starts down there by Dr. Terry's house.
Yeah.
That has our logo on it. I don't know what board did what, when, and why our logo's on the sign there. Right, no history on that, so.
I'll respond back to the residents regarding your decision, and I'll make sure that it's put up there. But the one thing to note is they don't pay taxes to the district for this tract. You are not one of the
No,
taxing authorities.
They are not in the metro district anymore. We are,
Tract K is not. in the district.
all Terry's property is not part of the metropolitan district.
There's even the stable.
Correct. It's not part of the metropolitan district.
Okay.
Which is why he was happy to take on the expense of the life we were paying for them.
wow, interesting. I should be part of that same one.
Yeah. Anyway. And I would like to say, Terry Draper has been a wonderful neighbor in my experience. And
Yeah.
And I don't think we want to create any onerous situations for him down there. And people that do use that trail, they need to understand and respect the fact that that is his land. And, through this kind of quirk in the plat note that's still there, they have the right to go in there, and they should appreciate that whole situation. And that's kind of my opinion on it. And
Absolutely.
if that trail is not suitable for you due to your hiking abilities or whatever, then
Don't use it.
don't use it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that simple. If you're an adventurous type and you have some skills, it's a great trail. If you don't mind beating through some brush, it's a great trail. If those things bother you, it's not a great trail.
To be clear, if somebody wants to go clean up that trail, they have to work with Terry, because that's Terry's property.
That is correct.
That is not like, they can just pull together a community group and go do this. They have to work.
No, they would have to work
Terry would be
directly with
okay
Terry.
with it, and they have to work with Terry.
That is
Correct.
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We
So
can
when
have a
anybody thinking they
donation
can just
box.
go,
You're right on.
We can have a donation box at the front of it.
There you go.
Jack Miracles.
I like that. It
Well,
just get
that-
vandalized, Rob.
sounds like,
Since he owns it, that's his nonprofit.
however he wants to do it.
I guarantee
There you
you,
go.
there are people from outside of either of those communities
Yes.
that drive down that park. And
Sure.
go up. is
You
what
know,
it is.
I've never been up there.
Oh, really?
You haven't?
I've only been up.
Yeah, he's caking up there.
That is me on fire. I was actually the naked guy once too. But only once.
Only once.
You're missing it.
Okay.
The waterfall is worth it.
Yeah, the waterfall's
walk.
cool.
Let me know when you want to go. I've never been there either. I'll go with you.
Don't go now.
Why? Because I cut my arm?
No, because the water is like
Oh,
really
God.
not flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It literally, many parts of the creek, there's no flow at all except maybe alluvial down a little bit. And all the ponds, the little basins that occur periodically are
That's
just
a shame,
shrinking
because it's
very
a really nice
rapidly.
little waterfall.
Little fishies are scrambling for,
And there's
Yeah.
gotta be a
Oxygenated
easier way to get
water.
up there than I went up.
yeah. I mean, it's still neat, but if you want to see water coming over the waterfall, about all you see now is water leaking through gaps in the hand-built stone dam.
Right.
That's the extent of the water.
Yeah.
All right, next on the list, Wakanda Park uses.
Oh, this is.
So.
Bring it, Bonnie.
Topic.
Hey, Bonnie, you wanted it.
I wanted it.
On the
No, I
list.
think the fingers were there. I think as far as we've kind of talked a couple of different things. When you guys were talking about like pickleball course and stuff like that. But I mean, that's
dead,
always,
by the way, that's not happening.
yeah,
That's officially not happening.
that,
The courts on,
The country club has very little interest in it at this point.
yeah, just to be clear, that's DOA.
kind of dead.
That's DOA. at this point.
So basically, we were trying to look at other, it just seems to be a park that doesn't have much use. People don't really know about it sometimes.
Well, kind of hidden down.
It's kind of hidden down in there. So we
It
were,
does get used,
It's
but
used though.
yeah.
I mean, it's used more than it was. I mean, it looks way better than it did 5 years ago. I'll give you that.
Mhm.
Because it was like, and then we got rid of the wasp or the bees or whatever were there. But I think as far as I think it has just, to me, I just would like to see more use of it. And one of the things we had kind of talked about was doing a modified like music in the park there. And so Craig and I had gone down there and there is the electric is there. The quasi band shell where you would put the band shell is kind of there around that. And we called it like a mini Red Rocks
Yes.
because of the canyons on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
And so then as far as you look at it and you can see like, you know how Fiddler's Green, you have the regular setting, but then there's a lot of people that just sit on the lawn. So we were like thinking, could that be a use for Wakanda Park? Could that be where we could have, I mean, it certainly would accommodate, I mean, it's not gonna accommodate 10,000 people, but it would certainly accommodate, 500 or 600 people, I would think.
Well, the biggest thing is
400
going to be
people.
parking.
I see like people like bringing, honestly, especially during the summer, people riding their bikes, people walking. Because what we found that the music in the park in Larkspur, the majority of the people that came to our music in the park are from Prairie Farm. That there was very few people from the town of Larkspur that took advantage of the free music. And so it was kind of,
From home.
But you're not running.
Is that
There's not enough designated parking, right? We'd have to,
There's no parking,
yeah,
yeah.
that's a good one.
There's no place to put it.
there's
Well,
well,
much-
in the
It's
parking
on
lot.
the road, you just have to like
Yeah.
organize.
But I think as far as people like, I see people on their bikes, people on their little golf carts. I mean, people would find a way to get there. They'd walk. That kind of thing. So it was like,
I think we could make a great little venue.
and then
There
you
may
could
be
have,
some things to try to, iron out with it, but, to get some music down there or something would be way cool.
Are there any use limitations on the park itself that we're not aware of? Like, do
It's
we
not
need
part
to-
of DCLC.
Thank God.
I don't believe it's that. We should check. There's a little creek going through there, so who knows?
Like, please.
Yeah,
come
yeah, the
on.
Corps of Engineers is gonna come out there.
Oh
That's
my
like Corps of
gosh.
Engineers might tell us we can't do it, right?
So I think as far as there's certainly, I mean, you could, it just depends on how you want it to go, but I mean, you could even have a farmer's market in there in the summer. I mean, there could be like things to get more use out of it. And I think as far as I mean, Craig can answer that, but as far as to trench the line, the electrical line from the pole
Over
to where the band shell would be, would it be that expensive?
No, we could get it fairly inexpensively, I think. And the biggest concern I had was, the vegetation along the creek bed itself.
Needs to get treated again. right
Yeah,
now.
the rattlesnakes and
That's
the,
right,
and the mountain lions and the bears and so forth. Huh?
Oh,
We need to figure out some way to keep, and that's, I don't know how we're gonna do that. I don't want somebody getting bit by a rattlesnake that just happens to.
well, I
No
think we,
rattlesnakes as far as once you kind of like really begin to kind of be on the land, they don't really want to be around there.
no,
They're all over the golf course.
they're there.
No.
They're there.
Yeah.
They're all over the,
I,
I guess I'd have to see them.
I think we just include that in our annual or monthly summer maintenance program instead of once every 3 years knocking the willows down. We do it on a more frequent basis and keep that area open. So that we.
Yeah, because I don't want to stay like in those big tall willows all of a sudden. Remember what I said, the little kids with the slide that goes down and then there's the big willows and then there's a mountain lion. Hello.
So if you were gonna do this, you probably wanna start setting this up for the next summer, I'm assuming?
Yeah, this would be a next summer kind of thing.
Now, would you do just once or twice just to try it out? Like, what are you thinking?
Potentially like do it like we did in Larkspur, twice a month.
Oh, so do the full program then? Okay. What about the food trucks?
Well, I was thinking maybe that would be a place to have a food truck event and invite food trucks to come in every Tuesday night and people can go down there.
You could also have,
Well, it's up to the food trucks, right? They decide. They don't think
Yeah.
they're making enough money doing it, they might do it.
yeah, because you could like have them, like there was that place that they could kind of go along behind the band shell where there would be a place to put three, couple of food trucks, things like that.
I like the idea.
I mean, you could
of
have
the-
music, you could actually have movies there if you wanted. If we thought that the rattlesnakes
One
wouldn't
thing
really
at a
hurt
time.
people.
Yeah.
But
The
this is where you
farmer's
wanna-
market sounds good too.
I mean, they're all great ideas, but I think what we're really talking about though is most pertinent is the music in the park potentially moving from Larkspur to.
I like all those ideas. I think it's great. I would like to see that park used more than it is. Let's,
So that's
if you can get some people together to independently take a look at what are the issues.
Right.
And we've identified a couple. The vegetation thing, that's easy to take care of. The parking thing, that's a different story. How big an impact is that or not? Okay, so to be determined. The little band shell or stage or something like that, just where would it be located? What's it going to take to put something like that together? Electrical and all that kind of stuff.
Noise.
Potentially, yes.
So what did you say?
Noise. Some people may not.
The
wanna
neighbors.
hear- the neighbors may not want to hear the noise.
Well, the neighbor that you have there is the neighbor
Up
that's
on the-
on the top.
Right.
Well, you have Echo Hills, and the sound's going to carry right out of there downstream and hit some of those residents down at Country Club and stuff like that.
Right.
But a lot of it would be dependent upon what type of music and volume and stuff. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be headbang and rock and roll music.
Well, yes, it does.
I mean, usually the park's done
Well,
with
other
dusk
kind of
anyways.
music too.
It's not like
I
it's gonna-
know.
Right, so I mean, we're probably talking about it, but I mean, that stuff all ends at dusk anyways, like it's not like it stays. I mean, even before that, really. It's
Yeah, I
like
think it's
8,
right. It's over by 8:30.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's a portable stage, right? And maybe that concept Could be in court. That might be another option for Wakanda, is to pull in a little portable stage situation like the one at town. I don't know.
And that would be one thing that I was looking at, could GoCo, because it's community activities and this and that maybe they would look at that a little bit.
At the park, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to apply for a grant for that, but they might consider.
Yeah.
But another show with that thing.
Well,
but to get a grant approved, you have to have
big
plans.
Yes,
Master plan.
Yes.
we need a master plan for that park.
Because that's what they want to see before they commit any dollars.
Yeah, they're gonna want to see an image of the end result.
Right.
And you may get a grant for a piece of this and a piece of that, not unlike what happened downtown Larkspur. But yeah, get that finished project. And I have always been a fan of trying to get a master plan done for that park. There's potential for a nice little trail loop that follows the creek down on one side and comes back on the other, because I believe we have that land down there. You can go all the way to the bridge where Country Club crosses, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it cuts a little bit shorter there, but it's down there a ways. So there's potential for like a nice little loop walk trail. That vegetation and stuff would have to get managed a little bit down there. We might get into some mouse habitat stuff we'd have to look into and see what we could do from a vegetation management standpoint. Things like we're going to need to get irrigation down there. Just even a little pavilion could use a little work, because it's been there a while and hasn't had much work done on it in a while. But yeah, let's move forward with that. Let's get some people there, and you know, being able to get a little music down there would be a food truck, music. I'm there.
Certainly an idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I think if we can work out the logistics of getting some of this going sooner than later, yay. And you know, maybe we keep the, you know, I don't know how you control, but the venue itself has some control on how many people would come in and what types of bands we would have would also be in effect. And the noise issue, I mean, yeah, acoustical, electrical, I mean, all those things can get talked about.
I think as far as the bands that we've had, for those of you who've gone, I mean, I've handpicked them for the last couple of years, but
You got some good ones.
but I mean, as far as its variety, it's bluegrass,
Yeah.
it's country, it's
Was
Rascal
there,
Martinez.
was there a fee charged in Larkspur for going to the music on Friday nights?
It was free.
So we do have a problem, or who's gonna pay for this?
The sponsors.
Oh, the sponsors, okay. So we don't have any expense from the Metro District.
Well, except for the porta potty and other
Maintenance,
stuff.
yeah.
Right.
You know, the stuff you normally get.
Yeah, but I mean,
And the
it's
setup to get it ready for that.
And that could be expanded, you know, if we need to get a couple more porta potties for an event. I don't see that.
then you would
as
have
something
somebody
that-
there to clean up, like,
They did, by the way, I saw the one getting hauled away this morning.
I did too.
So they hauled.
They hauled away the,
So assuming that means they put a new one there,
they hauled away the bad one.
Yeah, they told me they'd take care of it this week.
They did, I saw it this morning.
Good.
following it out of the park
Okay,
this
well,
morning.
I will do some more work on that.
that.
I
That
looked
sounds
at, I looked at GoCo grants for like November,
Cool.
so.
Yeah, we did apply for a GoCo grant. We had a grant writer produce, which we paid to produce a grant application for, what was it, some new playground stuff, indoor redesign of that whole playground area, repair of things, and a bunch of other stuff kind of wrapped into it. That grant did not
I
happen.
was denied, yeah.
Yeah, but we did apply, you know, and I can't remember what that grant writer, what we had in for that.
I'd have to look in the budget. I think it was like $10,000, something like that.
Yeah, because I've done a couple of those in other areas. As far as playground equipment and stuff like that, but it's always getting, like you say, putting other people, other entities in with you
Mhm.
that go co-loves.
Right,
Like, how many people
partnerships.
can we get
Yeah.
involved in this?
Yeah, that's a big hot button with any of these grants.
Yeah, that's their hot button.
That's why on the mitigation stuff, because the Haystack Ranch has partnered with us or we with them. They've contributed money for work done on their land, but it benefits all of us, right? So, partnerships are a great thing.
I agree.
Right. Let's see what else we got. Park and Open Space Committee. Anything?
I think we were talking about, we keep making a joke that Bonnie is the new Parks and Open Space Committee, which I appreciate, I enjoy, but is that true? And do we really need a Parks and Open Space Committee? But based on the conversation we just did, it sounds like Bonnie volunteered to be the Parks and Open Space Committee. So she can get this going, right? So based on the conversation you just
Based on the
said.
conversation, she did. Kind of like you volunteered for something
I don't know
earlier.
where is that? I volunteered for it.
Yep, we did.
He did. You got it.
No, that's good.
But no, I think as far as, I guess the question out there, and this is naivete, is how many parks and open spaces does the Metro District have?
Oh, open spaces,
Quite a few.
probably 40 some.
Yeah.
A lot of them are little one lot things. Some are much bigger. Parks,
That's a lot.
we have one.
Wakanda Park, Balloon Pond, Gateway Pond.
Well, Balloon Pond is.
Those are.
No, but they're open spaces.
So those are the open spaces,
Right.
yeah, and then of course, so is the entire lot on the other side of the gateway.
Yeah.
That's a
They're
big
big D.
space.
Big D.
There could
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
some park-like amenities at Balloon.
Now, is there something, and again, is there something out there that would tell new residents, even me, would tell me that's an open space? Or that's owned by the Metro District, you're able to walk that space?
Just on the assessors map, right?
Yeah.
And we have,
How about we make something friendly?
well, we have the property book that's up on SharePoint, but it's
I mean, a friendly
voluminous.
thing, like, here's, yeah, it can be like overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I'm new here to Perry Park, and look at all these great places I can go.
You're mistaking open space for meaning it's, open for everybody to go use.
Well, no, because I know that there's people that will walk like along the Red Rocks,
Yeah.
certain areas,
Right.
and there's gonna be, to me, that helps in two facets.
Yeah,
That keeps the people that are walking on people's personal property off of that, and then allows them to have the ability to go on to all these other places that
so
are owned.
I hear what you're saying, I think I remember, tell me if I'm wrong, that there was, because even when I started, there was a thing about a trail map. And then.
Where's that trail
wasn't-
map?
Well, that's my point, is like, that got nuked early, like the first time, because nobody really wanted the trail map. There was a lot of people against the trail map in the park, because.
Well,
That was back then, and I don't know, but I looked to the historians here, not you, but too, because that's what I mean, I remember that this was a hubbub before I started, and then it became a hubbub again after I started for a couple
Why would
minutes.
it be a hubbub though?
Well, here's the deal. At that particular point in time, the proposal was on undeveloped properties, not developed properties, because on not all of the filings, but many of the filings have a trail easement on each side of the property line, X number of feet, it's usually like 10 feet or something like that, which gives you like a 20-foot swath. The concept was to pre-construct fire line in these areas that are not yet built, okay? And then that would be used as a trail, right? Because it says trail easement. Well, yes, the community came absolutely unglued, and we had a couple meetings that were pitchforks and torches brought to the meeting. I mean, like, we had 70 people there that were just bonked about that whole concept. They did not like that
But I
at
see
all.
people walking on.
No. Well, here's the thing. That was across private parcels, okay? So that trail easement thing across private parcel, yeah, I still believe we can use those. There was a gentleman that was a lawyer that said, well, Douglas County owns those. But again, it says right in the plat notes that those trails are to be used for district residents, like for horses. Conceptually, it was like a system of horse trails that would go through, for that. Anyway, yeah, you don't want to go there because that was the worst experience that we've ever had with this board.
Well, and the other element there was the publicizing of the trail map in the first place. That was a big element from my understanding too. It wasn't just the fact that it was a trail map, the fact that it even existed meant you were inviting people from all over the world to come in and use our trails. And that's, again, I'm just giving you some perspective as to what this was coming. It was how it was perceived, and then how, and they're not wrong, that trail map wouldn't stay here. It would get socialized. They'd end up on Facebook or somewhere else. And next thing you know, we have people come in to kind of use our trails.
So we have people coming in using people's personal property now. So
Well, I think
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just giving you the background. Because you'd asked before,
this
one.
This is these are some fighting words.
This is when it came up.
No, this is fighting words with people.
Oh, it blew up.
There's 70 people that.
And but again, that was 2 years ago. Our complexion
I think there's a
inside
lot
the
of
park
people
has changed a lot in that time.
Here would be my advice on that. There are some open space parcels that have user trails on them right now. There's a couple that are suitable for doing a little walking. We don't need to necessarily publicize all that. I think word of mouth within the community may be sufficient for that kind of thing. We may want to look at long-term, a couple of those open spaces, maybe bettering that dirt path user trail, maybe putting down something like a crusher fine base or something that's a little more defined. But they're there now and people do use those now. So, we also have open spaces that are not suitable for public access. Number one, just the terrain to get there would be impossible. There's a number of them that are what I would call landlocked by private parcels around them. So you really don't have the ability to get to it unless you trespass. So there's several of those.
Well, I mean, as far as there could be something that is here's 10, 5, okay, here's 5 places.
We could sit down
and you could go
and do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then as far as then people are going, I'm not trespassing on somebody else's land. This is owned by the Metro District. I pay the Metro District.
Yeah.
I can go here. And then you're kind of discouraging them from other places and maybe encouraging them.
Right. There's only a couple that are large enough to actually do that.
Yeah.
And we can sit down and go over those.
Okay.
And they're both really cool properties. I think they lend themselves to public access. They are public property. And again, it's the same plat note that applies. They are open to residents of Perry Park and Perry Park East.
Very pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. I just
Not the public.
I'd suggest
Not the greater public.
Not the group.
I would suggest that Bonnie is the chairperson of the committee.
Yeah.
I'll help her.
Okay.
I'll volunteer to do that. And then we get some citizens to come in and help us.
You've been volunteering.
Maybe
you have not actually stated yourself.
Jill Arthurs might be a good person who's
to be
part of the monument
I think
process.
it's by default. isn't it?
Do you guys know that there are maps of all of Perry Park sitting
Yes.
in the shed?
I do know that.
Okay.
I haven't put them in there.
I think I held them.
Is that just the plat maps?
Yes, I think it is just the plat
But
maps.
I think if you go online and get
I think there's-
assessor maps, we can find them.
Right.
they're all scanned and
We're
they're on
just like, we
SharePoint
would
as
bring
well.
it to you guys and go, okay, what about these? And you guys,
And maybe we
Okay.
pick 1 or 2 of them and say, hey,
Hey,
we
look
want to
at
do
this.
something here to make it a little bit easier to access.
Walt Karinke, when he was on the board, put together this voluminous compendium of all of our properties, because he went and did just what you're talking about.
Okay.
That exists. I have a paper copy. We have the electronic copy
It's on SharePoint.
on SharePoint, and it shows, I think, in green, all of the metro districts. And I think there's like one big broad scale view of Perry Park that shows all the little green dots on it. And then you can go page by page with a larger version of that to take a look at.
We're doing that with beer and wine.
Mostly beer. I'm not a
Wine.
wino.
My God, it's voluminous. It's like,
Well, no, it's not horrible.
No, it was like 48 properties, if I remember
Can you send me the
correctly.
link to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I could also assist with that and give you an opinion.
yeah, because you would tell us that's not really a good one.
We just have to be careful we don't have more than 2 board members on the committee.
Right.
Otherwise it becomes a board meeting.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. Well,
So we
just
could,
a heads
we
up.
could pick some and then Randy.
Yeah,
could
well,
look at
then we bring it to a work session.
We can always put another work session. That's a good use of a work session.
That's what work session should be.
it. Okay, all right, that's all. Right now.
okay. Well, that's cool. And thank you, Bonnie, for doing it.
Thank you
And
for volunteering.
And Joe,
Oh, thank
same
you,
to you
Sean.
for
For
volunteering.
volunteering me.
I didn't do
Or
it.
that Joe.
No,
Yeah.
Okay.
I just named you chairperson.
Pine Beetle Communications.
Yeah, do we know?
I'm a little lost on that.
So
When
this,
I am
okay,
too.
I said this at the last, not the last
That
meeting, but the
includes
meeting
the-
before it, when we were talking to Keith.
Keith had said that pine
Said-
beetles aren't a problem right now, but they envision them possibly being an issue in the next 2 to 3 years. And he had recommended that the district puts something out as an educational piece to,
We start talking about that as
Yeah.
early as next year.
yes.
And I was like, okay, let's make sure we really talk about how we communicate that.
Yeah.
Because I still hear about the Tuscan moth, and that happened before I got here.
Yeah.
Classic
So,
mom.
yeah. So,
Well, he's specifically, he's talking about mountain pine beetle.
Right.
Mountain pine beetle historically has been cyclical.
Mhm.
So every X number of years, roughly every couple decades, I can't remember the exact date, you get a resurgence of mountain pine beetle.
And they're exacerbated by drought because it
Correct.
weakens the trees.
Yeah, and it can be, the outbreak can be outrageous like it was back in the 80s, where all along the Front Range, mountain pine beetle was just killing off ponderosa pine right and left. And to the point where, like, if you were going to tree spade native ponderosa pine, they would have to get sprayed prior to transport. There was a whole thing, if you were cutting down bug infected forest, of what you do with the lumber. And it was like, yeah, they were stacking it. They were spraying it with 7-mole and an insecticide, and then covering it in plastic sheets and baking them in there before you could even take the wood out as firewood. I mean, it ran into a whole lot of other things. And Keith's right, we're overdue on kind of that cyclical schedule. So it's likely going to be coming up.
And he's been seeing it down in the Black Forest.
and this is,
Yes.
yeah, right, and this is all good.
We're
all
seeing
fair,
it.
but all my biggest concern was, how do we actually talk to people in the park who don't know about this,
Right.
don't know about the cycle of this? They just hear pine beetle and they start freaking out. And next thing you know, we've got who knows what going on. So I think it's about a communication plan around this. That's my real concern, is because this is one of those things I just, based on behavior I've seen since I've been here, I think it makes sense for us to be really clear in how we take that information out. How do we make sure we put enough information in there and do our best to at least, because it's still gonna happen, it's still gonna go blow up. But at least then we put all the resources out there and the way we're talking about it, here's what it is, here's what's not. We've got talking points for how we go into social media to respond to these things and so on and so forth.
But what is it that the Metro District can do?
It's not about what
Just
we can
not
do.
It's
Nothing.
It's
education.
not about that. It's about the fact that we're going to talk about something like this to the community. If that's what our charge is, and Keith says that's our charge,
Education.
then we just need to make sure we're clear in how we're doing that, communicating something that says pine beetle on it before people start going, and spraying down all the
Freaking out.
trees.
We don't have,
Wouldn't you have set up a informational meeting and then and put it out there that at 7 o'clock on da da da, we're gonna have this expert that knows
Do
about
that
pine
too.
beetles.
We should do all those things the same way we do the fire stuff.
And the bear aware and all the other stuff.
Yeah,
And the
There's a
state's got
tremendous resource.
I think that's all. I just didn't
Colorado
want us to
State
send
State
Forest
Forest.
Service.
I agree.
I didn't want us to say, oh, let's throw that in a blast.
Everything you want to know about pine beetle, they have.
There's no reason,
but just have
there's no
somebody
reason to
come in
recreate the
prepared.
wheel.
No,
That's a great
all-
resource.
what
Not
we should
smart.
Keith would be the guy to write a little article
Absolutely.
for the Sentinel or whatever, because he could put it in the best terminology with his background. Get that article out, and then with a whole listing of resources that the community can tap into. You go to this site, you go to that site. Like I said, extension site has got all the things on the bugs and diseases. And it would be good for people just to learn to go there, because they may not even know that information is out there and exists.
Sure.
Sure.
So yes,
Okay.
that was really all I wanted to make sure we talked
I mean,
about.
that's a great point.
In a work session, not in the main session. Say, hey, how do we want to do this?
Right.
Let's game
Yeah.
plan a
No,
little bit
I-
on this one, and let's
I agree, I agree.
let's not step in this one.
And the last thing you want to do is create some kind of
Not without
panic
boots.
situation. Because if you do push that info out there wrong,
That's right.
people will perceive it as the next immediate crisis.
That's right.
It's not that right now.
It's not.
It has some potential. We're seeing an uptick in it, and people should just be aware.
That's right.
You know, and
gonna spray my trees.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but as Keith said, spraying the trees
Doesn't actually.
doesn't actually help, and it actually causes more environmental problems because it kills other good bugs.
This is the point of having this.
And killing
Thank you
off
for being my
birds and
object
everything
lesson.
else.
That's right. No, and timing is huge. If especially with pine beetle, if you don't spray at the exact time, and it varies because of the weather and stuff like that, but there's a time frame where it's appropriate to spray. And if you're not doing it during that time frame, you're not doing any good. You're just spraying
You're just spending
pesticide.
money.
They're just spending money.
And killing hummingbirds and everything.
Yeah,
else.
no,
And we will have to talk about what we're doing to mitigate the open space that we do, if that's the case, right? You know, so it will be something we'll have to figure out. We will have to address, even if it's not for the residents, it is for the open spaces. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, for the open spaces.
Right.
That's the only part that we're responsible.
You know?
I think it'd be really great if we could get Mr. Worley, if he would be willing to write the occasional article for the Sentinel as a distribution format on topics like that. And it doesn't even have to be a monthly thing. It can be as things are happening, or events on the horizon, or just a little.
Spring and the fall type
Look,
of.
I'll talk to Marco about
Here's
it.
what to do to get yourself,
See
your
if
trees ready for winter type of thing.
I'll make you a deal. I'll talk to Marco about it. If you talk to Keith about it.
I'll talk to Keith
And then
about
we
it.
can make a connection.
Okay.
And there you go.
Now, he's got a
Perfect.
3-hour meeting, you've got a 10-minute.
And
Well, they're just,
Well,
they're just
Somebody
giving
cameras.
if
When you start a discussion with Keith, I will be there.
Yeah.
We're gonna be there a while.
and that's all good. I love
He's a
my
great guy.
discussions with Keith. If he doesn't have the time to do something like that, I suggest that we maybe find somebody
From the
around
extension
the area
office.
that would be considered an expert in these areas, you know?
Or just pull information from the Forest Service. I mean,
Let's see, there's an extension officer.
they've got a lot of
Yeah.
Oh, they
information.
got a ton, they got so much stuff, man. I tell you what, yeah, you could spend days reading it, and it's educational.
And I
for
bet you
itself.
even we're going to come talk about it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm sure we can figure that out. I think it's just a matter of communication.
How to get that out.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
but I think it is probably worth taking some kind of action on our part as far as
Yeah, I think so.
getting word out, because
And we have some time. He didn't say we didn't really need to start talking about this till early next year.
yeah,
You know, so I think that's why we should kind of focus into our rest of the stuff we're going to talk about annually about
Yeah.
their aware, fire safety and stuff. We can just kind of make it into the whole program. But it's, yeah, that's what I wanted to do instead of You
don't
know,
have to worry about that.
random like e-blast that says,
Oh my gosh.
I don't
Yep.
They'll pick you up and fly off with you.
Just when the grass gets higher.
Yeah, especially. One other thing about open space, have we done anything with this rancher? The guy that's doing the mailing of hay out there yet?
Not yet.
I don't know, do we?
Have a
honestly
little
care?
conversation.
Yeah, he's taking those bales off of them, and selling them for a huge amount.
$9 a bale.
How many bales are we talking?
We're talking probably,
It could be.
Look, I mean,
there
how
was
much
800
goes
just off
into
the,
it? I mean, how much do we get out of it? I got a question, like, do we really care how he's selling it? I mean, honestly, if he's doing
well, he
work
was
and
supposed
not
to,
charging
He
us
was
for it,
supposed to donate to us,
yes, he was supposed to donate to the 4th of July.
and he didn't.
And
do
he
it.
hasn't done it ever that we know of.
did we put that in writing?
Well, that's, nobody can find
Can't-
that.
No, I think
Yeah,
that was
so-
probably a verbal
Gentleman's
handshake.
Yeah,
The-
kind of
the
thing.
problem-
Yeah.
So the issue is now, he's making a lot of money off it, because 800 bales times $9, he's making $7,200 at
Well, then let's
least.
go formalize the agreement.
Yes.
That's all.
Well,
Yeah.
that's, the
Then
subcommittee was
He just
established.
volunteered.
No, you
I'm
guys,
saying,
you
let's
guys are in the
just-
subcommittee.
Like I say, he has
That was
some
just
years ago where he's had expenditures
Sean's
there,
working up a contract.
where he's sprayed for noxious weeds.
Right.
Okay,
Contract
and that was him,
is
that was him, his equipment, his
Right.
expense on buying the herbicide and the labor to do all that
Right.
kind of stuff. So, you know, that's part of the equation and the conversation of,
Sounds like we should have something with this.
we get it cut from a buyer standpoint, which is a wonderful thing,
Right.
okay? And then what he makes on it, but what he's put into it, I mean, we need to have a serious discussion with
I
him.
mean, you don't have his cost.
I mean,
Right.
I
And
mean,
if
he's
it's like
marking it up too. I mean,
It needs to
again,
be equitable to both
This is
sides.
doing-
Right.
I think it's really about what we need from that. And if it's, I mean, this is donations to the 4th of July, that we need. More importantly, too, I mean, there might be some safety things we can do. But yeah, let's just get it in paper. That's
Right. That's all we were talking about, is let's get it on in writing.
Let's get an
Joe
agreement.
sign it. Joe
I'm
should
not
sign
the
it.
president. I'm the treasurer.
Yeah, have a discussion with him and just see where he's at, you know, I mean, he's got costs, he's got
Yeah.
those machines, he's gotta run them, he's
Yeah,
got
yeah.
to.
I mean, as far as he hasn't.
What a
cost of
great-
doing
I
business.
mean, look, and that, like, that's zero headache for us, right? He comes and takes care of it and takes it away.
Right.
Like, right? That's
Right.
like,
Yeah, that's a good thing.
that's a great.
Right.
There's a lot of value with it. So, okay, so the.
And some years he doesn't get squat for a hay crop.
Right.
off
He
there, too,
yes.
you know. Like you were thinking, maybe he'd get a second cut this year, when the rains kind of shut down.
Shut down. Yep.
But it was looking, have been people, not too far from here that have gotten a second cutting on
Right.
stuff this year.
And it's not just the big D, it's also the front.
Yeah.
So that
Right,
on
right.
the north
So-
side of the road.
Yeah.
So he's got the 800 bales off the big D, and then whatever bale, however many bales he got off the
Sure.
front. So I figured that he was probably making somewhere around gross sales, somewhere around $12,000 roughly. So, and yes, he does have expense. Somebody said.
We're not asking for half of his money,
No,
right? I mean,
No.
we're just saying, hey, kick us a little something out here.
I
right.
totally agree the discussion should be had and something probably ought to get jotted down.
Something in writing.
Because what happens if he just
Right.
decides next year he's not gonna cut?
Well, and that could be an issue because it's his dad. Rob told me that his dad is the one that started this.
If it's anywhere lucrative, I'm sure we can get somebody else. The good point is to get the deal, get it in place, get
Get it in writing.
Get it in writing and put a term on it, right?
Right.
It's not in perpetuity, it's for like 5 years. I mean,
Right.
is it 5 years?
Right.
Have
You
we
know?
put in there that he is responsible
Right.
for his own insurances and his own
Yeah.
Right.
everything else? Because right now, we're liable,
Right, yeah.
if he screws something up.
Yeah, it's all just hanging out there and that's.
Yeah, that's not good.
Right.
Cool.
No, we need to get some stuff jotted down.
All right.
Anything else on that topic?
Well,
Anything else on any other topic?
I did, oh, go
We
ahead.
have one more, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I contacted, or I left a message for Krista, the gal who did the,
Christmas lights.
yes.
Oh, I did too.
Okay, and I'm just waiting to hear back. I asked for a quote so we could bring it to our next board meeting.
Yeah.
Christmas lights at the entrance.
Well, now we don't have a tree.
Oh, there's plenty of trees there.
Yeah, there's plenty of
We
trees.
got one
And it
tree
was-
dead now.
Yeah, it was
Down
even
a
suggested,
Down a tree.
it was even suggested maybe doing something with the fence too. So.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, I have those deer at my house.
I would suggest that board members take turns standing out there and we'll have a decorate the board member night.
That's a Halloween thing,
Oh,
the scarecrow.
Oh, the
So
scarecrows.
There will be
that's not-
rotten tomatoes, so
Yeah.
yeah.
be careful what you ask for.
I wanted to, we've got another work session we're gonna do when we get to the finals on that, and I would like to add something where we talk about a mission statement for this board.
Right.
I don't mean to sound like really formal about that, but I just want to talk about, we're an interesting special district, right? We don't have a lot of the same responsibilities most special districts have in this space. Been in here for quite a while, but there is a role here. And I think it's good for us to probably talk about what we say that role is and be really clear about it with our community, so they know what to expect from us.
Right.
And then we also can apply that in how we think about the work we do.
Right.
Because I think that way we can be like, okay, is that part of what we're supposed to be doing here or not?
There's a lot of misconceptions.
And I think there's on both, and look, it gives us some guide rails too.
Right.
As far as what is it here? I mean, it's generally things like safety related, things like protecting the value of people, the residents, properties to some extent, as possible. And then we'd have to talk around some of the details, but I want to spend some time talking about
Right.
that.
And wasn't there a discussion that there was some guy, or was this, did I miss something? Did I sleep? That something in Upper Cheyenne, and he wanted to buy a piece of property from the Metro District that was next to his parcel up in Upper Cheyenne.
Yeah, there was something about that.
And I don't think that we ever determined he could do that or not do that. And what, if there was a price on what value we would put on that.
Yeah, I think when you guys are working on this, looking at all the properties that we own as a metro district, that is something that we probably need to start looking at is how many of those can we sell? What values are they?
Can we sell?
Can we sell them?
But we
And-
could buy them.
Right now is a good time and we can get a lot of money out of them at the present time if they're buildable. If they can be sold by us and so forth. So,
You have those whole lot.
Well, a lot of them are in areas that are not developable.
I'm gonna say,
That's a big
Yeah,
chunk
we
right
would
there.
have.
But
well,
But I
I
thought
can
Upper
tell you
Cheyenne-
one right now that right on the corner of Foxway and Pike that we just got, and it'd be ideal to build it on.
we can't,
But that one can't be done.
That's the one that was left in
And some guys will.
the estate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't
It
sell.
has to stay in.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. And there's another one that got left to us in a will over on Acoma. In fact, it's one of the properties that's gonna get treated on the rest of phase one.
Right.
regardless, it'd be good to have an inventory of those, just to know
Yeah.
what's what, for no other reason than just to.
But I agree with you, Craig. I think number one, if the Metro District has the ability to sell off any of those, I honestly don't know. But we take a look at some of those that are not useful to us or the community, why do we have them?
Mm-hmm.
And if it could generate some income that could be put towards enhancing the parcels that we can use and the community can use.
Like what kind of part?
Well, and income two ways. First of all, puts them back on the tax rolls.
Correct.
And the value of the lot itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a lot of merit to that.
But I just remember we talked about that a couple months ago. And we were gonna do it at a work session. There we go.
So,
I'm putting that back on there.
That is
So-
a good one.
so the first thing
Shot
that
across Cruise
is when you guys are getting those lists of how many properties and where they're at, then we can start looking into whether or not we can sell them or not.
Yeah, and we probably, I don't know what resources we need to look. My guess is the plat notes are probably gonna have some information that we would
Right.
need to review. I don't know if there's anything in the actual charter of the Metro District that would address that or not, but we should take a look at all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the deeds.
See where we sit.
Yeah, and the deeds is what I was thinking is that we probably, I think we're gonna, I think it's all gonna be a lawyer thing to figure out.
Right. And, parcels that
We're all good. Maybe
have the
she might-
potential for
she
a
might
high
be good.
benefit to the community, either now or in the future. Those would be things that we'd want to not look at selling,
Right.
but there's so many parcels that we have, and a lot of them are like one lot in size,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
What's a one lot open space good for?
Right.
Other than
Depends on where it is.
buffer, if somebody bought a property and built a house knowing that that was going to be open space forever, and that was one of their main reasons for buying that, because they did their homework up front, then that's consideration also. But some of these are just
Yeah, but we say that,
way out in the boonies.
but we say when there's like, we're selling real estate and it says open space, do not guarantee that that's open space, because that may change.
Yes.
Right.
It
So
can
it's
always
kind of
change.
like,
If it's not in the
it
deed.
can always be changed.
Once they buy it, that's right. They can
Like-
buy it if they want to keep it buffer.
What do you want to do now?
Yeah.
By the
Okay.
way, we're
Looks like
we're
we
about
got
to
some
sell
homework.
this lot.
A couple of those interior parcels that we don't even have access to, for God's sakes. I think there are at least a couple of those. What value do those have, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
Other than the people who live there, and it's like, yeah,
Why would they want to buy them? They don't have to pay tax on it.
That's
They
right.
get to use it anyway.
That's right. That's right.
Unless they want to put a new garage. up or
But
something.
you cannot,
Goes
you
right through
cannot
there.
deny access to any property. So there's gotta be some access somewhere.
I think for us, we might be able to get in there. I don't know about the general public though.
Well, for
yeah.
walking, but I gotta believe if somebody bought the property, they have to provide an easement.
Yeah.
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 Well, let's look into all that. I think it's very interesting. Anything else?
No, sir.
I'm good.
We good?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need to
Call it
8:30. Nope, it's not a regular meeting. You don't have to do that.
And encouraging anybody that's still out there, if you had question, comments, or ideas, please submit them to the Perry Park Metro District info line. And we will take a good look at that and would really appreciate your comments. So thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
The sign that you wanted has been installed.
I know.